Father in heaven, there is so much to learn about the wonders of your creation. Inspire us, our speaker, and our listeners to seek out new avenues of knowledge by remaining attentive and alert. Open our minds to new ideas, information, and insights. Deliver us from the fear of the unknown, especially right now amidst the pandemic. Most of all, we lift up our academic year to be filled with growth and joy.
So, welcome everyone to B.L.I.P, where we discuss topics that embody what's it like to be left in the face. I am Andy Babs from Class 2HCE3, and with me today is Ella Remedios from Class 2 Tom 3. We'll be discussing about how the impact of discrimination can affect one's mental health with our special guest, Miss Amber Quiban.
Today on the show, we're excited to have Miss Amber Quiban, a student from the University of the Philippines Diliman who is currently taking a BA in Speech Communication. She is also part of the Philippine Anti-Discrimination Alliance of Youth Leaders since 2017 and has always been outspoken about overcoming discrimination, gender equality, and empowerment. So for this episode, she will be sharing the impact of discrimination on one's mental health.
So ayun nga po, hello Miss Amber and welcome to the second episode of our podcast. Kamusta naman po kayo? Magkamustahan tayo.
A lot of things have been happening lately, no? Sunod-sunod yung mga nangyayari sa mundo natin and we're still in lockdown. A year and a half passed already. We're still on lockdown, so it's really taking a toll on my mental health. For example, like feeling ko nung start nga parang I don't know how I'm gonna get through this, and until now hindi ko pa rin alam kung paano ko siya nasusurvive, pero I think nandito naman na tayo, so might as well weather the storm, sabi nga nila. So yeah.
Yes, we are thrilled to have you as our guest for the second episode of B.L.I.P. Ask ko lang po ate, makeup enthusiast po ba kayo?
Yes, I actually like makeup so much. Feeling ko ko siya, coping mechanism ko din siya. Kasi sometimes, kapag bored ako, tapos I just want to feel good about myself kasi I'm feeling down, ganyan. Or yun nga, kung wala akong ginagawa and I want to do something na I feel personally like it's productive, yun, I try different kinds of makeup, ganyan, para lang ma-feel ko siya, para lang ma-try ko.
Same, Ate Amber. Actually, ako rin makeup enthusiast and pag nag-makeup po ako, nawawala yung stress ko. So, stress reliever ko siya. Yan. So, to start off, we would like to ask, what is it like taking a speech communication course during this pandemic? What were the challenges you faced throughout your experience?
Well, taking up speech communication during the pandemic is very, very difficult. Number one, kasi kailangan mo may kausap when you're a speech com major. Like, a lot of our stuff is very, very practical. And, ewan ko, I think it's ingrained in the culture of being a speech com student that we really have to interact with people. Even yung mga hindi masyadong extroverted sa amin, they are really expected to try to communicate and learn how to communicate with other people. So, it was really a challenge for a speech com major like me to be shifting to an online class wherein it's very difficult to look at nonverbal cues, for example, especially if your classmates are off-cam. Kasi we cannot insist naman on having them turn on their cams, right? So yeah, there are those kinds of barriers when it comes to really maximizing how we go about the discipline. But at the same time, we're very used kasi talaga in interacting with people. So it presents a difficulty for us to no longer have that space to communicate and talk with one another and just share our thoughts. Tsaka, iba talaga yung recitation, for example, kapag online class compared to how it was done face-to-face. Kahit nakikita mo yung classmate mo, for example, hindi mo siya feel. Hindi mo nararamdaman yung presence niya. Kasi iba talaga yung dala ng nandun kayo sa isang room at magkasama kayo.
I totally agree with you, Amber. I mean, I feel na it's the same with us students right now in hospitality and tourism. Syempre, ang hirap din po syempre na saan kami magpapatikim ng pagkain namin sa prof? Magluluto lang kami sa bahay. Tapos kapag kunwari nasa front desk ka, sino kakausapin mo? And it's really great that you explained the nuances within our setup right now, di ba? Na given those who are introverted, napapalabas po talaga sila ng shell nila to really push and communicate with people right now, syempre.
Yeah, tsaka ang hirap din kasi talaga nung idea na the only mode for us to communicate is via our devices. I guess it's important to highlight as well na hindi ganun ka-empathic ang online space for us. Hindi siya ganun nakakapag-express ng emotions. For example, during the pandemic, a lot of us had to suffer with and deal with grief, sadness, di ba? And it's very difficult processing grief online. Ang hirap na hindi mo man lang mayakap yung kausap mo, or you can't offer them a hug or you know, pat them in the back to assure them that it's okay. Kasi iba rin kasi yung feeling talaga na nahahawakan mo yung mga taong kausap mo, yung may element of touch, kumbaga. So yeah, it's really very difficult engaging and maintaining relationships ng ganitong pandemya.
Yeah, I agree, Ate Amber, na mahirap talagang makipag-interact and communicate sa classmates natin ngayong online class. Ako naman, isa rin po sa struggle ko, I'm not a techie person. So when online classes started last school year po, sobrang nahirapan talaga ako sa paggamit ng mga online learning applications like yung Zoom. And I know that many of our listeners can relate because many students and profs out there aren't tech savvy. So distance learning really is a struggle for them. That's why we relentlessly call for ligtas na balik eskwela so that both students and teachers can be at their best in the four corners of the classroom. Kayo po ba, Ate Amber, do you miss the campus life?
Yeah, grabe. Sa totoo lang, sobrang tagal ko sa UP, no? Iba kasi sa talaga yung feeling ng nasa campus ka. There's a certain sense of freedom inside the campus. Kahit sabihin natin may mga specific rules and regulations sa campus, no? Iba pa rin kasi talaga yung feeling ng freedom. At iba pa rin talaga yung feeling na you get to bond with your friends, with your classmates, especially after class. Kasi isipin mo, sobrang stressful mag-aral. It's true. For any program, don't allow anyone to say na ganito lang naman yung course mo. No. The truth is, mahirap mag-aral. And what's great is, at the end of the day, alam mong hindi ka nag-iisa dito sa mga pinagdadaanan mong to. Kasi you have friends with you. For example, namimiss ko talaga after ng mga meeting namin. Kasi ngayon, mostly ang mga meeting namin online. 'Di ba? Ang pinaka namimiss ko talaga is pag after meeting, kakain ka together doon sa mga pansit kantunan campus. Iba yung feeling na sometimes kasi meetings like that tend to be very long. Minsan may mga disagreements kasi part naman siya ng org life, di ba? Ng student life. Pero what's fun is after ng meeting nyo, kakain kayo together and everything will be forgotten. It's as if hindi kayo na-stress kanina. It's as if walang disagreement kanina. And that's something na hindi na natin ma-process ngayon. Na, shucks, after ng meeting, wala na. Patay na natin yung Zoom room, di ba? Patay na natin yung call. Tapos na. So, sobrang hirap talaga nung idea na feeling ko yun yung keyword ko dito sa episode na to, process. Ang hirap mag-process ng mga bagay-bagay kahit alam mong nandyan sila kung wala siyang element of touch, wala siyang element of personalness, 'di ba? Ang hirap niyang gawin. So for me, yun yung mga nami-miss ko sa campus, na yung mga tatambay ka sa tambayan ng org, ganyan, maghihintay ka na mga kasama mong kakain, maghihintay ka ng makasama mong lalabas, bibili ng coffee, ganyan. Yung mga ganun lang. those simple stuff could change an entire experience kasi talaga. And I'm very, very sad dun sa mga batches na hindi man lang nakatapak ng campus kasi they would never really feel how it's like to be inside the university, how it's like to be in campus, na everyone around you is just so supportive of you, and it would offer you some sense of peace as a student.
True, Miss Amber. Sobrang nakakamiss po talaga ang campus life. Well, I've been to UP na po twice, and napansin ko po talaga ang layo ng mga lakarin. And marami pong food stall sa loob ng UP na student-friendly. Kumain na po kasi kami doon ng friends ko.
Indeed. And ako din naman, nakapunta na rin ako ng UST. At iba talaga yung environment sa mga campuses natin. Na, let's say for example, hindi ka nasa isang mapunong lugar. Sobrang stressful ang environment. At least, sa mga campuses natin, makakapag-relax ka, makakapaglakad-lakad ka around the pavilions, for example, makakapaglakad ka sa ARC, ganyan. Yun yung experience na hindi na may enjoy nung generations na hindi pa nakakatapak ng campus. Yung pag-ikot-ikot around Sunken Garden, Akad Oval, ganyan, pag-jog, 'di ba? Yung pag-picture kasama ni Oble, for example, for UP students. Yung mga ganong experiences, hindi siya masyadong ma-appreciate ng mga tao at hindi nila masyadong maintindihan kung ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng campus life. Kasi wala, ang nakikita lang nila yung dinisplay sa Zoom nung introduction, nung orientation seminar. Yun na. So, imaginein mo lang, shucks, paano kayo yung feeling ng paghiga doon sa ugat ng akasya? 'Di ba? Or paano kaya yung feeling na nasa tambayan ka ng org? Wala, hindi nila alam yung feeling na yon. And somehow, that feeling of longing as well creates a feeling of distance na I can't see myself in this environment. Why? Because I cannot identify with it. I don't have an experience with it. So yun, iba-iba yung gravity. Siyempre kami na mas matatanda na na-experience ang campus life. Medyo mas ang feeling lang namin ay nostalgia, nakakamiss. Especially pag nakakakita ka ng picture ng campus na parang, nakakamiss yung campus. Pero yung mga bata kasi parang meron akong nakausap na freshie namin, hindi niya rin alam yung maramdaman niya. Parang malulungkot ba siya? Kasi hindi siya nakaapak, mamimiss niya ba? Wala naman siyang experience ng lugar na yon. So parang confused din sila kung anong mararamdaman nila dito sa mga signals na to. At hindi natin sure kung kailan sila makakatapak, kung makakatapak pa ba sila sa mga lugar na to. So yun, yung mga ganong klaseng consideration. So I would say na iba-iba yung effect niya, pero there is a common theme na there is that feeling of longingness and that difficulty to process our emotions altogether.
Sobra po nag-resonate talaga sa akin yung feeling of loneliness or longingness kasi nga po, for me, myself, I haven't really gone to UST since yung only time na nakatapa ako sa UST is yung entrance exam, and nung time pa na yun, hilong-hilo ako sa four corners ng UST. Di ko alam, ngayon, kung babalik man ako doon, same feeling pa din kasi we never really got to experience anything about the college life. So, for example, yung welcome walk namin, we might never get to experience that during our college life, and that's really something na takes away from the experience of being in college. Siyempre, we dreamt of being in college, and now that it's here, there's really something missing talaga. So, moving on, Miss Amber, we noticed that you were a former political science student. What made you want to shift? Did you experience the discrimination and judgment that often comes to students who shift or take an LOA?
Number one, I personally feel like I felt too constricted with poli-sci, to be honest. There were so many expectations that were needed for you to act prim, ganyan. Meron akong isang experience. I just need to let it out kasi medyo traumatic experience siya for me. I was supposed kasi to attend a general meeting of an association for poli-sci organizations in the Philippines. So, hindi ko na ibibigay yung pangalan, let them guess. But Kasi I was the externals officer of my home organization. So I was expected to be there, right? And that time, I was already identifying as a transgender woman. So, although hindi pa ganun kahaba yung buhok ko, not even this long, like the length you see now, hindi pa ganito kahaba. Tapos, I was already presenting kasi in a feminine manner. But can you imagine, short hair pero feminine manner? So, for a lot of people, that didn't sit well. Tapos, yung venue kasi ng General Assembly was in one Catholic school in Manila. Disclaimer, hindi siya sa UST, somewhere. Somewhere pa, sa Intramuros, ganyan. Hulaan nyo na lang. Tapos, then syempre, I tried to dress to the occasion, ganyan. I tried to wear a dress, as in yung mahabang dress. Tapos, naka-heels ako, ganyan. Nag-ayos ako for it kasi I wanted to look prim, ganyan, para kahit trans woman ako, hindi nila ma-feel na I do not belong there. Hindi nila ma-feel na hindi ko kayang dalhin yung sarili ko as a pol-sci major. So yeah, I really took time thinking about what to wear and how to execute it. So pagdating ko doon, muntik akong hindi papasukin. Kasi nga, naka-cross-dress daw ako. So, I had to explain na hindi po ako naka-cross-dress. Ito po talaga yung suot ko. Ito po talaga dapat yung outfit ko. Kasi babae po ako. And yet, I faced reprimand from an org-mate na sabi niya sa akin, dapat kasi mas nag-ayos ka ng damit. Dapat daw nag-pants ako. Na parang, kung cis woman naman ako, hindi mo naman ako i-require na mag-pants. Dahil ba trans woman ako, kailangan naka-pants ako. Parang mga ganong klaseng questions. There's so much double standards when it comes to treating trans women and cis women in society. Na parang, just because trans woman ako, kailangan nakapants ako. So, I really felt bad. I really had insecurities. And doon nag-start mag-creep in yung idea na, baka this program isn't for me. And I was young. I was young during that time. So, I didn't have the same assertiveness that I have now, na pag sinabi mo sa akin, dapat mag-pants ako, no, bakit? Ikaw ba bumili ng damit ko? Wala akong ganong klaseng assertiveness when I was younger. I was very afraid of the repercussions of my actions. So, nag-concede ako and sabi ko, alangan namang umuwi ako. Nandito na ako. So, what they did was, hinanapan nila ako ng coat. Yung isang kasama namin, meron siyang coat. Tapos, pinatakip nila doon sa lower part ng outfit ko. And to think na lampas ng tuhod yung skirt ng dress ko. At mas mahaba pa yung skirt ng dress ko kumpara doon sa pinatakip nilang coat sa akin. Diba? So, I really felt offended. Pero, syempre, these are things na hindi ko ever nasabi dun sa org-mate ko. And I really felt like I was out of place. So, doon. Tapos, meron din akong experience sa isang transphobic na professor na he kept on addressing me he and him instead of she and her and Mr. instead of Miss. Kasi ang sabi niya sa akin, yun daw yung nasa class list. So, yun yung i-address na sa akin. So, there were cases of transphobia in the department na hindi ko lang talaga mapalampas. So, my mental health suffered and it spiraled down the drain. Maraming nangyari in between. And then I realized that maybe Pol-Sci is not the program for me. Maybe Pol-Sci is not the career path that I should be pursuing. So, one mid-year yung counterpart ng summer, I was taking Com3 classes, which was required. Pero sobrang late ko na kasi siya na-take. I was taking Com3 classes and I said, these are the things that I want to pursue. These are the things that I want to learn more about. Like, I really had fun in that class. I really enjoyed it. And I said to myself na, this is where I want to focus my energies on. So, after that mid-year, buo yung isipan ko na I'm gonna shift out. I'm gonna shift to a different program. Pero again, things happened. So, the shift didn't happen smoothly. So, I had to take a leave of absence. So, na-feel ko na, I needed time to compose myself and find where I want to go talaga. It was a process for me, and hindi siya naging madali. And going back to the university also wasn't easy. You know, facing again the fact that your batchmates left you na, they have already graduated, facing the fact na you will be facing younger generations who might laugh at you for not yet graduating. But as the time goes by, as the time passes on, doon ko na-realize sarili ko na I don't have to castigate myself for not being able to graduate with my batchmates. I don't have to castigate myself for staying here this long. Because I know that if I pushed myself too hard, I would have broken a little bit harder. And maybe kung tinuloy ko siya, that kind of breaking point is something wherein I couldn't recover from. So, merong mga ganong klaseng consideration sa akin.
But it's so sad and heartbreaking to hear po how society treated you before. Kasi diba, no one deserves to experience discrimination. Pero good for you po, Miss Amber, that you've been redirected to the right path. Kung saan niyo po talaga nakikita yung purpose niyo. Someone told me nga po na it's better to take a course that is aligned with what you want to do for the rest of your life. Because if you're passionate about your job, you won't see it as work anymore because you enjoy doing it. So, you look forward to it every day and you are able to put your best effort into your work. And yun nga guys, dapat di tayo nagpapa-apekto sa mga negative comments kasi diba, it's your life. So, do whatever you think is best for you. At the end of the day, you're responsible for yourself and you will be the one living the life you choose. So, if you feel like leaving the course that doesn't spark joy or pausing to take a rest and to focus on other important things, diba, it's your choice.
Yeah, and I feel like we need to start unlearning the idea that whenever you don't get to the finish line at the same time, you already failed. Na being delayed is a sign of failure. Parang that's a very toxic mentality for me. It doesn't reaffirm our decisions in life. I always believe, especially when I came into terms with my insecurity with the fact that I was delayed, no? I have come into terms na your road to your success, your road to your finish line should never ever define the quality of your success. At the end of the day, when you reach your finish line, you have reached your finish line. And no one can ever take it away from you. No one can ever say otherwise. Na parang, oh, it took you 10 years to reach your finish line. But who cares? You didn't live the life that I lived. So, you have no right to question the worth of my success. You don't have the right to question the course of my decisions. And you don't have the right to question the timing of my life. Kasi, if we live the same lives, maybe okay yung ganong tanong. Pero since we're not living the same lives, since we're not experiencing the same hardships, I think it's very unfair for us to discriminate against people who had life a little bit harder.
I think that's true what you said, no, Ate Amber, na syempre, college is never a race. I think it's kind of quite annoying to hear that people still place a negative connotation to people who view shifting and LOA as a bad thing. Kasi nga, they're there for a reason, diba? They're there for us to keep us in pace. Kasi nga, not everyone has the same learning capacity. Some may be slower than others, some may be faster, and that's okay because we're all different. So why the need to have discrimination on such things when it's just everyone has an equal opportunity? So medyo minsan na parang you should really mind your own business and you should just support that person for what he's doing kasi he's still achieving what he wants in life.
Tsaka we cannot bring out the best in people if we keep imposing our own definition of best. At the end of the day, iba-iba tayo ng skill set. Di ba meron yung recognition that there are different kinds of intelligences. So, kung merong ganong klaseng recognition that there are different kinds of intelligences, why are we imposing a monolithic idea of what the best is? What is the best for you may not be the best for me. And that's totally fine because we have different beliefs, we have different skill sets, we have different talents. And I think we should celebrate the diversity of that. We should expand on and work on appreciating our diversity as people. Kasi hindi naman pwedeng lahat tayo ay doktor. Hindi naman pwedeng lahat tayo ay lawyer. 'Di ba? Kailangan merong teacher. Kailangan merong social worker. Kailangan merong artist. 'Di ba? Kailangan merong mga hospitality managers, 'di ba? Kailangan merong mga communicators like myself. How do we communicate the message effectively to our audience? Hindi tayo lahat pwedeng pare-pareho kasi it would create a big mess in our world kung pare-pareho tayo. So let's work on appreciating the diversity of people and appreciating the skill set that each of us have.
That's really interesting na Ate Amber. I think you really pointed out something that's kind of alarming in our Filipino culture na matunog kasi sa mga Pilipino kapag yung anak nila is engineer, architect, lawyer, and it just brings down the other courses that their children take na parang kung arts ka, wala kang pera dyan. And that's really such a judgmental and wrong way of thinking. Dapat we should appreciate that there is diversity, there is complexity, there is different types of people in our society.
Yeah, and yun nga, parang we only create a better world if we start encouraging people, not discouraging them.
It's true po. So, Miss Amber, Annie and I discussed the pressures of balancing work life and academic life during our first episode. Since you're still studying, can you share any insights on how the online learning system has made an impact on your mental health?
Well, ako kasi I'm balancing yun din, work life and ACADS kasi I'm also working na din. But ACADS, ang hirap mag-delineate ng bagay-bagay. Kasi for example, nung face-to-face, syempre, pag nasa school ka, ACADS. Pero meron kang time, yung mga break times mo, pwede mo siyang gamitin to enjoy, to loosen up a bit, to have fun with your friends. Tapos, after class, if you wanna do ACADS with your friends, you can. Sobrang daling ayusin ng schedule. Ngayon kasi, dahil online, parang hindi ka rin nape-pressure gumising ng maaga. Isipin mo, asynchronous naman, so okay lang malate ka ng gising. Parang, you don't look forward to something. Hindi conducive ang online setup natin. Especially given how it's being handled. Hindi siya conducive to the general welfare of the students. Hindi siya conducive in promoting the welfare of the students. Kasi hindi naman natin na ma-maximize talaga yung kailangan matutunan ng bata. In UP, for example, we have shortened the semester. But the requirements are still the same. So what are we compromising? Diba? We're compromising the welfare of the student and we're compromising the education of the student. So siguro, it's important also to talk about the idea of compassion when it comes to the academic setup and the academic requirements. Na unfair siya na 3 months lang yung semester namin pero yung workload namin pang 5 months. Diba? So, may mga ganong klaseng layers. Tsaka yun nga minsan, in the middle of your rest, kailangan kang mag-work on something for school. Pero, nung face-to-face, kapag nakatambay ka sa tambayan ng org, kapag wala kang gustong gawin, pwede mong gawin. Like, pwedeng nakatambay ka lang doon. Pwedeng makipagdaldalan ka lang with your org mates. Ngayon, kapag merong urgent na gagawin, it feels like everything feels so urgent at kailangan siyang gawin ora mismo. And it's excruciating to feel that way na ay hindi man lang ako makapagpahinga. Some of my classmates even complain na sometimes hanggang weekends nagtatrabaho kami. hanggang weekends nagmi-meet kami. Na dati-rati naman kaya naming mag-meet after class. Kaya naming mag-meet ng weekday. Para sa weekend, it's all on us na we get to relax, we get to enjoy. Ngayon kasi, isipin mo din, kung sunod-sunod na synchronous classes ka, tapos 4 na subjects ka sa isang araw, sa UP that's already 6 hours. So isipin mo, 6 hours kang nakatunganga sa laptop, tapos makikipag-meeting ka pa after that. Sinong hindi mapapagod doon? 'Di ba? So, ang tendency ay, sige mag-meet na lang tayo ng weekend. So, pagdating ng weekend, dahil ang daming meetings na dapat naggawa na during the weekdays, na kailangang i-move sa weekend kasi pagod na nga ang lahat at hindi naman natin pwedeng pilitin na hello, mag-meeting tayo, 'di ba? Kahit weekends natin, puno na rin. Puno rin yung schedule natin ng weekends. I know a lot of the students could relate with this na kahit weekends ang dami nating ginagawa na before naman nung face-to-face, hindi naman siya ganun. Sobrang daling mag-delineate ng task, sobrang daling mag-delineate ng schedule. Pero ngayon, wala, nag-overlap lahat ng mga bagay. So isipin nyo na lang yung estado naming mga working students na nagtatrabaho na, nag-aaral pa, na kung ganito na yung itsura ng schedule namin sa school, paano pa yung schedule namin sa work? So sobrang hirap. Ang hirap niyang i-navigate, kumbaga. And I feel like it's affecting a lot of students in the most negative ways possible. Their mental health, their physical health, kasi hindi sila nakakapagpahinga ng maayos at sunod-sunod yung stress na naranasan nila. So yun, iba-iba yung experiences, pero it all boils down to the same conclusion, na hindi conducive itong setup natin for education.
I agree, no, Ate Amber. Kasi syempre, there is wala na yung clear cut between academic life and work life. Diba syempre, when we go to school, that's school time. Yun na dapat yun eh. Tapos pag uwi mo, you can rest, do your homework. Pero ang nangyayari, lahat naging homework. As in, parang lahat nag-flood in na sa'yo, na-stress ka na, and you don't really know how to delegate time for what is what. And syempre, given that we're at home, mayroon tayong duties as a son to our family or a sibling. Na syempre, we do household chores, we do this and that, we help with their work. So, it really boils down to nga, the conduitivity of our educational system, na parang, what's the point in shoving down so many requirements, so many lessons, when the student can't already keep up anymore? The student is already trying to hold up so many things, and dadagdagan pa natin with more requirements. I don't think that's the right course of action naman po talaga.
Weekends, may deadline. So, nakaka-drain po talaga, no? Lalo na di naman lahat ng students. ACADS lang ang pinagtutuunan ng pansin. 'Di ba? Tulad nga po ng sabi nyo, may mga working students. And sabi ni Andy, may mga household chores tayo. Syempre, 'di ba? So, nakaka-drain and we need to rest din naman po.
Tsaka dati kasi, for example, hindi ako nakatira sa bahay. So, nagdo-dorm ako before. I mean, nasa pa rin, boarding house na ako ngayon. Pero, nung nakatira pa ako sa bahay namin, nagdo-dorm kasi ako. So, wala akong konsepto ng household chores. As in, yung mga ginagawa kong task ay kailangan ko siyang gawin kasi walang ibang gagawa. Alam mo yon. Pero kasi ngayon, most of my classmates, for example, nasa bahay na sila. Karamihan kasi ng mga friends ko from the provinces. So, magkakapareho kaming naka-dorm, naka-condo, naka-boarding house. Ngayon, syempre, since nasa bahay na sila, inuutusan na rin sila ng mga family nila. At hindi naman sila makatanggi, di ba? Hindi naman sila makasino. Kasi nandun sila eh. Physically nandun sila. Na minsan pinagmumulan din ng away from families. Kaya ang dami ko ring naririnig na sentiments from students na ang toxic sa bahay. Ang toxic ng environment sa bahay, hindi siya conducive for learning. And if you're one of those students, I empathize with you and I understand where you are coming from. And it's really unfair that it's the students who have to face the brunt of everything. Na wala man lang tayong ginagawa to address these issues, to make it a little better for our students.
So given nga that, Ms. Amber, What do you think about this online setup and how it affects students, teachers, staff, and parents, seeing South already places discrimination, especially regarding with financial stability, support, and status?
Well, ang daming factors na kailangan nating i-unpack. For example, financial means, ang daming nakalowa ngayon. Yung iba nga hindi naglowa, nag-awol talaga sila, absence without leave. Kasi hindi nila kaya. Yung mga parents nila na lay off from work. Or yung mga parents nila hindi makapaghanap buhay kasi naka-lockdown. Ang daming barriers to education because of the pandemic. Isama mo pa dyan na hindi lang enough na nakabayad ka ng tuition fee. Kailangan meron kang matinong internet connection at maayos na device para makasabay sa online education. And minsan nga, at least one device, sobrang hirap na rin. Yung iba, para sa kanila, kailangan at least dalawa. Pero paano naman yung mga estudyanteng kahit isa ay wala? 'Di ba? So, nakakadagdag din siya sa mental stress. Saan ko ba huhugutin tong perang to? Saan ko ba huhugutin tong device na to? Para man lang meron akong magamit for my education. It's very, very unfair to our students. Number 2, aside from access because of financial means, nandyan din yung very unstable internet connection. May internet ka nga, pawala-wala naman. Putul-putul naman. Mahina naman ang signal. 'Di ba? Pero binabayaran mo yung internet na yon in the same way na binabayaran siya ng mga classmates mo who probably have a better internet connection than you do. And it's not because hindi ka nagbabayad kasi pareho ka nang binabayaran. It's because yung iba sa atin are from far-flung provinces na hindi pa ganun ka-establish yung internet connection. Meron akong classmate, every now and then, nakikik siya ng Zoom. So every now and then, kailangan niyang bumalik. I don't blame them, pero nakaka-disturb din siya ng learning experience. Kasi di ba may tunog yung Zoom kapag may pumapasok, yung ting, ganyan. Every now and then, pag nakikick out siya at bumabalik siya, merong ganong tunog. So medyo nakaka-distract siya in a bit. Again, I'm not blaming them, but how is that conducive for the learning experience of the students? Diba? Yung face-to-face classes nga, ayaw nga nating may kumakatok sa pinto ng classroom natin, di ba? Kasi it's disturbing the learning process. How much more itong every now and then, merong nagno-notify na may pumapasok sa room. Kasi every now and then, merong nakikick out from the room. At hindi lang siya isang classmate ko, marami sila na nakikick out. Meron lang talaga akong isang classmate na halos every 10 minutes nakikick out siya. So imagine, in a 1 hour, 30-minute class, at least 10 times siyang makikick out mula sa call. Sobrang labo, 'di ba? Tsaka, kailangan kasi natin ng steady internet connection to access our resources. Paano ka manunood ng asynchronous video? 'Di ba? Yung video na ina-upload ng professors for asynchronous session, kung mahina yung internet mo, kung ni-load yung first frame doon sa video ay hindi magawa at hindi mag-load. Meron kaming classmate, yung same classmate na tinutukoy ko, mga 5 minutes na naglo-load yung video. Tapos every now and then, makakat siya ng makakat kasi nagbabuffer yung internet connection niya. So, how is that conducive for their learning experience? It's very, very unfair. Tapos, some of the professors don't even give them leeway, don't even provide them with alternatives. Sobrang hindi siya makatao, sa totoo lang. Tsaka, aside from the access part on the financial financial angle, meron din tayong usapin on yun nga, mental stability. A lot of students have been suffering from mental health problems na mas pinatindi pa ng isolation because of the pandemic and the lockdowns, na mas pinatindi pa ng economic struggles natin. Okay? Ngayon, trigger warning sa mga nakikinig. Pero ilang cases na ba ng estudyanteng nag-attempt o nag-succeed sa suicide ang nabalitaan natin ever since start ng pandemic? At sa totoo lang, hindi na siya nakakatuwa. Na yung mga reasons kung bakit sila nagpapakamatay ay dahil hindi nila magawa yung module nila. Kasi wala silang signal. Kasi wala silang capability to do so. Tapos makakarinig ka ng mga government officials na magsasabing, the online learning setup is a success. But at what cost? How many lives were gone because of this so-called success of our online learning setup? Siguro yun yung mga bagay-bagay na kailangan nating pagnilay-nilayan. Worth it ba itong ginagawa natin if at the end of the day, sobrang stretched in na ng ating mga mental stability? If at the end of the day, hindi na natin alam kung para kanino ba natin ginagawa itong mga bagay na to. Kasi sa totoo lang, ang dami na rin nawawala ng motivation mag-aral. Kasi naisip nila, after kong graduate, saan ako mag-a-apply? Taghirap ngayon ang bansa. Walang masyadong job openings. Ako na to na nagtatrabaho, I would tell you, ang hirap mag-apply ngayon ng trabaho. So, maswerte ka kung makaland ka ng trabaho. So, ayun, merong mga ganong klaseng considerations na kailangan talaga nating pag-isipan at pagnilay-nilayan.
Actually, I've heard personal experiences of students po who find it hard to keep up with online classes because, yun nga po, yung sabi nyo, they don't have a conducive learning environment, wala silang sariling laptop, stable internet connection, and many families during this pandemic are struggling to make both ends meet kasi di ba marami po talagang nawalan ng trabaho. And that's why you must be compassionate and understanding during these trying times po talaga.
Yes. Gusto ko lang sabihin sa mga estudyante na nakikinig dito na kung meron tayong groupmate na hindi makapag-submit ng mga parte nila, huwag tayong mag-jump into conclusion na hindi sila makapag-submit kasi tamad sila or butaw sila. As much as possible, let's try to diagnose, let's try to assess the situation of our classmate. Kasi sa totoo lang, galing din ako sa ganung level of privilege kasi nga nasa Manila lang ako. So mabilis ang internet ko. Wala akong problema sa internet connection, sa totoo lang. Well, minsan, pag medyo down yung internet ko. Pero generally, okay yung internet connection ko. Pero kasi, we're not all in Metro Manila. Meron tayong mga classmates na nasa Mindanao at nasa Northern Luzon na hindi pa ganun ka-develop ang mga linya ng internet connection. So let's extend a little sense of compassion. And since Mental Health Month naman ngayon, I would like to remind people na it costs nothing to be kind and to be considerate and to be understanding to the people around us. So as much as possible, let's exercise and maximize our compassion and let's show to people that we are a different brand of people na hindi tayo kapareho ng toxic culture na kinagisnan natin, na kinalakhan natin.
O yun, Ate Amber, na parang they say that we succeeded in online setup learning, but at what cost? Really kasi, syempre, before naman, madami na tayong ginagawa na yung sa mga hindi kaya ng magagandang educational system, syempre, they still struggle to learn, but they're learning. Pero syempre, kahit yun nga, hindi na natin naayos, diba? Hindi natin nabigyan ng maayos na eskwelahan, books, other materials. And then, to say that we have really succeeded in implementing the online learning setup is really a fragile statement. Na parang, you can poke at it with different angles. Na parang, paano yung mga estudyante na breadwinner ngayon? Siyempre, sobrang pressured sila to keep up and to really finish. And that's what sometimes breaks their mental health, diba? Na parang, oh my God, kailangan ko galingan. Kasi ako na lang yung talaga magpapaaral sa ibang kapatid ko or para din mag-provide sa pamilya ko. It really, you have to really retrospect everything and take into consideration that not everyone is as privileged as we are. Or not everyone is really taking the path or like situation that they have. For my experience, we have a classmate who's deaf and mute. Ang hirap na nun for him na Zoom yung online learning. Di na nga siya makakinig. Bakit di pa rin siya makasalita? Paano siya mag-recite? Diba nakakatakot na recitation? And for him, we really try to support him as much as we can and be considerate nga. Show compassion. Like, not everyone has fast internet. Kaya nga minsan may mga pinipicturean tayo na nagpo-post tayo sa Zoom, ganun. it's all fun and games, but when you really look at it, have you really succeeded during this online setup?
So, have there been any circumstances wherein you've encountered discrimination from your peers or professors? Were you the type of student to speak out about instances of discrimination? How did this affect your mental health as a student?
Yeah, I did experience discrimination from classmates. Well, more of microaggression from classmates. Hindi naman siya outright, well, it's not outright discrimination, but still as bad as discrimination, right? And I also experienced outright discrimination from professors. Actually, dalawa lang naman sila. So, it's not that bad. Pero the mere fact that I experienced it, right? It's already alarming. Nakakaapekto siya sa self-esteem ng estudyante. Yun nga, 'di ba? Nakwento ko naman kanina na it even forced me to leaving my program because I didn't feel safe in it. I didn't feel like I belonged in it. Not because I feel like hindi ito yung program na para sa akin, na I don't like the program per se, but because the environment is toxic. The environment is filled with microaggressions directed at me as a trans woman. And it's not healthy for me to think about these things over and over again. So, when I had the opportunity to grab that chance to leave my program, I did. And I feel like wala namang nawala sa akin nung umalis ako. In fact, I gained a little bit more time for myself. I gained a little bit more stability for myself nung umalis ako dun sa program na yon. And at the end of the day, hindi healthy compromise na gusto mong mag-succeed agad-agad for the sake of your mental health, for the sake of the things that matter to you, especially my identity. Pero yung naging effect nun sa akin, may mga times na I don't want to attend class. Kasi I don't want to be hearing microaggressive comments na, uy, mukha kang babae today. It doesn't sit well with me. Babae ako. I don't to look babae to you. Babae ako. Right? Or being called Mr. by one of my professors. I have to deal with these things. So, I'd rather cut classes than attend this, than to experience this thing. So, may ganong klaseng angle, no, na kailangan natin tignan. And yung lowered self-esteem affects the quality of output of the student and how efficiently they get to that output.
Okay, Ate Amber, continuing with that educational aspect, did you notice how the university, UP, or has developed ways or policies to lessen any acts of discrimination around the campus? Are there any organizations in UP that fight for anti-discrimination and mental health? If yes, what have they done in the past?
Yeah, I have UP Babaylan. I'm a member of UP Babaylan, the oldest LGBT organization in the Philippines for students. And they've been a great help. As in, it was a safe space for me. Number one, I think it's important to note that if you have an LGBT organization in campus, it's automatically a safe space for you. And it offers you a certain level of protection, a cushion from discrimination in your campus. It offers you a certain sense of family, that you are not alone in what you are struggling with, and that they could do more than offer you assurance. Which, leading to my next point, is they could help you file cases. They could help you fight for accountability. You know, it's very, very important to hold the perpetrators of discrimination accountable for their acts. And UP Babaylan has been there. It's not just assisting members, it's also assisting non-members who seek help from UP Babaylan. And number 3, I guess, UP Babaylan is a lobby organization in campus and off campus. But specifically, since your question is on the academic setting, in campus, marami nang nilobby ang Babaylan na policy changes. For example, meron dyan yung pag-i-include ng mga live gender natin sa mga student portals, and hopefully in the future ma-adopt yung pagkakaroon namin ng opportunity to use our live names in official school documents in campus, as in yung for school use lang, para hindi na namin gamitin yung mga dead names namin when filling up documents. But at the same time, currently, Babaylan, along with the UP Center for Gender and Women's Studies, is lobbying for the UP administration to pass the UP SOGS policy. So, it's a policy that defines what a SOG inclusive and equal university is. So, it provides protection mainly for the students, but for the rest of the community as well. So, mga staff are also protected. Para lahat tayo, hindi lang mga estudyante, but even teachers, ay protektado mula sa discrimination. And I think that creates an environment where you feel empowered enough to be at your best, because you know that when needs you or uses your sexuality to be mean against you, you have a way to exact accountability from them. You have a way to protect yourself. So, maganda yung idea ng mga responsive policies sa mga universities natin, kasi it assures us that discrimination is not allowed and entertained at all.
Well, it's good to know po na meron po palang orgs sa UP na into fighting discrimination and celebrating diversity po.
Yes, grabe yung yung inclusivity. Siyempre, I have a org then back in senior high school. We were Ateneo Senior High School Lakambini Committee, and we also fought for safer spaces in our society. Siyempre, with Ateneo, there is a common stereotype na medyo may pagkabastos sila, pag ganun. Pero it was really assuring for us that we were fighting for a cause that really will benefit the next generations of senior high school students. And I think that's something in line with UP Babaylan, no, that syempre being the oldest LGBT organization in the Philippines, they're really setting a standard. They're really setting an example to be led by and to be followed by other universities. Ang ganda po ng policies na gusto nyong gawin. Syempre, yung SOG inclusivity, I really resonate with that and hope that it gets passed in multiple universities, kasi we don't know what's happening behind doors. Like, the misgendering of, kunwari po yung kanina story niyo about yung tipong outfit niyo lang na discriminate kayo agad. Like, in an educational system, is that really something that we should be worrying about? Isn't it about the intellect and what the person has to offer to the table and not what he wears? And like, we should really just respect them and show them that they should be respected in that manner.
Totoo. So yun, sana other universities also follow suit. At the end of the day, it's not a competition. The road to equality is not a competition. Hindi natin kailangan mag-unahan. Kung nauna ang UP ngayon, okay lang. What's important is umabot tayong lahat doon, 'di ba? Kasi again, iba-iba naman tayo ng kontekstong pinanggagalingan. UP is a state university, but there are universities out there that are sectarian, and that's okay. That's totally fine. And if progress for them is a little bit slower, then we will have to deal with it. But what's important is sana hindi mag-waver yung desire natin for an equal university, for a university that is safe for everyone, for any student, for any teaching or non-teaching staff, regardless of their sexuality, gender, and even other identifiers, even their social classes, even their religion. Diba? Yun ang klase ng educational system na dapat tinatrabaho natin.
So moving on, after discussing UP Babaylan, seeing how stigma, prejudice, and discrimination against people with mental illness is still very much a problem. Social isolation, poor housing, unemployment, and poverty are all linked to mental ill health. How did you show concern po or talk to these people?
Well, number one, we really have to provide a safe space. We have to assure that they will not be re-victimized by their trauma. always have to remember that victims of discrimination deal with trauma. As in, there's no exception for that. All victims of discrimination have to deal with trauma. They have to process their traumas. And we don't want to be triggering them, diba? We don't want to be reminding them of what happened to them. And we want the conversation to come in as naturally as possible. And to come out from them, that they have the initiative to trust us with their story. So, what I usually do is I really try to remind them na, number one, they are not alone. Number two, that there are people who also experience the same things that they experience. There are people who understand their struggles. And at number three, there are people who are willing to listen like myself. And that would give them an assurance a little bit to feel safe and comfortable. Sometimes hindi healthy that we are sharing our traumas with them as well. Yun kasi minsan yung tendency ng mga tao to put themselves in the narrative of the person who is affected. Na parang, alam mo ba, na-experience ko din yan. Tapos magkukwento ka in details kung ano yung na-experience mo. Sometimes it's not healthy. It's not advised by a lot of professionals to be doing that. So, yung rule of thumb talaga natin dapat ay talk from an outside perspective, but talk with compassion. Na you're not alone, that's very general, that you're not the only one who experiences and people understand where you are coming from, and that there are people who are willing to listen. That way, hindi mo ini-insert yung sarili mo doon sa trauma ng tao, hindi mo ini-insert yung sarili mo doon sa grief, sa narrative ng tao, but at the same time, you're able to provide them relief. And I guess at the end of the day, yung pinaka-importante kailangan nating ma-provide sa kanila is that there is help, and that you can help them access redress mechanisms. You can help them demand for accountability from the people who did all of these things against you. Yung mga ganong klaseng sentiments na kailangan nating samahan din yung tao kung gusto niyang mag-file ng case. 'Di ba? I guess yun yung palagi nating nakakalimutan, na parang palagi nating kinakalimutan, I'm always here for you. But how? What is the best way to show to people that you are there for them? It's by helping them access redress mechanisms, by helping them seek justice. So if they file their case, the best thing that we could do as a support group is to support them, is to assist them. For me, yun yung experience ko with Babaylan. I have experiences of discrimination, and Babaylan was there to assist me when I filed cases, when I filed complaints. And they were there with me through the process. Kasi you have to remember that if someone files a case for discrimination and they have to prove that there is discrimination, they have to recount what happened. That's a very, very traumatic experience. So, sobrang halaga po na samahan natin sila. Not just by words, pero be there for them. Kailangan ma-feel nila tayo physically. Kasi, yun din yung pinadama sa akin ng Babaylan. Whenever may hearing ako, kasi nag-file ako ng complaint, whenever may hearing ako, after ng hearing ko, sasamahan nila akong kumain. Sasamahan nila akong mag-unwind, mag-process ng mga nararamdaman ko. Kasi syempre, I had to recount the discrimination that I experienced. And then, wala. Ina-assure lang nila ako. Ina-assure lang nila ako na okay lang. Everything will be okay and I will get the justice that I need and deserve. So yun yung palagi nating nakakalimutan. That there is no moving forward without justice. Diba? We can never move forward without justice.
Very well said po, Miss Amber, 'di ba? We must provide a safe space for people na nakaka-experience ng discrimination. Dapat iparamdam natin sa kanila that they are loved.
Oh, yan, Noella. Siyempre, it's hard talking with people who are against the stigma. Siyempre, we don't want to therapize them. We don't want to degrade their feelings or push away comments when they want to talk to us. Pero we also have to be mindful of what we say to them kasi we don't know, baka maka-add pa tayo or baka we add fire or oil to the flame, ganon. So, syempre, after all that we've talked about, the culmination of this podcast really is we want to ask you, Miss Amber, when is it okay to not be okay? And when is it not okay to be okay, given the impact of discrimination on one's mental health? And what can you suggest to our listeners today or right now listening regarding ways to cope up or speak up about this topic?
I like this beauty pageant question because I'm also a beauty pageant fan, and I remember that this was asked by Boy Abunda during the last Binibining Pilipinas. There are stressors that we cannot control when situations get out of hand. For example, in the context of the pandemic, hindi natin makokontrol ang anong mangyayari sa pandemic. And it's okay if you don't feel safe. It's okay if you don't feel secured. It's okay if you have doubts, if you have fears, because that's what the pandemic poses to us. That's what happens during a pandemic. Diba, nag-start tayo na 2 weeks lang, then naging isang buwan. Then after that, isang buwan ulit. Then isang buwan, 15 days, 15 days, 15 days. Hanggang umabot sa isang taon. Hanggang umabot tayo sa punto ngayon, 1.5 taon na tayong naka-lockdown. It's okay not to be okay when things are out of your control and you just feel so lost. Because sometimes it's okay to express emotions of grief. It's okay to express emotions of being lost, of being sad. These are all natural things that we have to express. What's not okay is if we keep them inside us. Okay? It's not okay to be okay with normalizing self-torture, self-pity. It's not okay to be okay with policing other people's emotions. It's not okay to be okay with further discriminating people in this difficult situation. Nasa isang pandemya lang po tayo. Hindi tayo naiiba ng karanasan sa isa't isa. While some people might have it easier, meaning to say they have more privileges available to them, the matter of the fact is lahat naman tayo naka-lockdown. Lahat naman tayo takot magka-COVID. Lahat naman tayo takot mamatayan o takot mamatay dahil sa pandemyang ito. So sana, let's normalize compassion. Because by normalizing not being okay in times of a pandemic, we normalize kindness. We normalize compassion, di ba? And feeling ko, yun yung kulang sa bansa natin ngayon. Imagine, may mga namamatayan pero nagagawa nating tawanan. May mga taong nawawalan ng kabuhayan pero nagagawa nating tawanan. All for the sake of convenience. All for the sake of our privileges. It's unfair. Hindi siya makatao. Yun yung kailangan nating balikan, ang pagpapakatao. And the gist of the question actually is that it's okay not to be okay kasi ang pagdamdam, ang pagkakaroon ng damdamin ay pagiging isang tao. And it's not okay to be okay with injustices, with oppression, dahil hindi ito pagpapakatao. Oppressions are never about people. It's about the systems that allow them to happen. Ang bottom line lang doon ay maging tao tayo at magpakatao tayo.
Alam mo, Ate Amber, I think it's a really great way to cap off this whole podcast. I think maganda the way you're talking right now to our listeners, to people who will come across this podcast, na sometimes it's okay not to be okay in this situation talaga, na it's a given that you will have problems with your mental health or problems with discrimination kasi not all the time can one person keep it together. And the recurring theme across our podcast is compassion talaga. Compassion, even if it's regards with a conducive and learning environment, or with the process of a person taking steps to fix his mental health. It's really all about compassion at the end of the day na how do you show compassion to those people who are already struggling, na you're already privileged, pero what are you doing with that, diba? That's a really great way to put it talaga. Ikaw, Ella.
Yes, I agree po, Miss Amber, na dapat magpakatao po tayo, di ba? We must stop the discrimination and instead develop sensitivity among others and show compassion to people. Kasi hindi naman natin alam kung ano talaga yung mga pinagdadaanan ng mga taong nakakasalumuhan natin everyday. Tulad nga ng mga napag-usapan natin kanina, di ba? Yung mga struggles ng students during this pandemic, di ba? It justifies we're in the same storm right now, but we're not in the same boat. Not everyone shares the same privilege. That's why we must be compassionate and understanding talaga. And I truly admire you po, Ate Amber, for turning your pain into power. Kasi di ba po na-share nyo kanina yung experiences nyo about discrimination and how it affected your mental health. It even pushed you to shift po, di ba? Pero now po you're an advocate na po. You are able to stand up for those who are being mistreated by society today. So yun nga guys, grabe, ang dami na natin na pag-usapan about sa importance of compassion amidst the pandemic, fostering an inclusive society, helping the victims of discrimination file cases and seek justice. So thank you again, Miss Amber, for sharing the impact of discrimination on one's mental health. Ang dami ko talagang natutunan, and I hope that you guys learned something as well from all the insights shared by our speaker. But before we end this episode, we would like to give this certificate of appreciation to Miss Amber Quiban for sharing her invaluable time and expertise as a resource speaker during the podcast titled B.L.I.P, Being Left in a Phase, held on October 20, 2021 via YouTube Live. Given this 20th day of October in the year of our Lord 2021 at the University of Santo Tomas, Manila, Philippines. Signed by Ms. Jershi May K. Kirao, President of the UST CTHM Student Council, Associate Professor Evangeline E. Timbang, CHE, and Ms. Maria Margarita P. Cruz, MBA. Advisors of UST CTHM Student Council, Reverend Father Roland D. Mactal, OP, STHD Regent, and Attorney Jessie G. Granado, DCL Dean.
Again, thank you so much for the College of Tourism and Hospitality Management for having me and for the Student Council for having me over. You know, when I overcame discrimination, hindi ko pa naman siya na-overcome fully, but when I came into terms with it, rather, I think that's the better way to phrase it. When I came into terms with my experiences of discrimination, kasi dati ang tendency ko palaging mag-self-pity, kaawaan yung sarili ko, and feel bad about myself because I can't do anything, which led me to pretty dark places. I would just like to share na I was put into rehabilitation therapy, and it was in UST that I was attended to. Sa UST rehabilitation ward ako, sa San Lorenzo ward ako, na confine for my rehabilitation therapy. Which is why UST also has a big part in my heart kasi it opened me to a new life. It opened me to where I am now. I could have died. Honestly. No? And I'm just very thankful for you for allowing me to share my story. Pero siguro yung gusto ko lang sabihin sa inyo ay, you know, life is very difficult. Cliché. Alam kong paulit-ulit na natin siyang narinig. Life is unfair. Life is very difficult. And it's true. We can't stress that enough. And sometimes, okay lang din mapagod. Yun kasi yung ayokong ma-experience dati. Ayokong isipin na napapagod ako. Hindi ako pwedeng mapagod. Why? Because I have so much to prove. I have so much to prove to people for them not to discriminate me. 'Di ba? Ano bang sinasabi palagi sa mga trans na katulad ko? So dahil trans ka, dapat meron ka pang ibang talent. Kasi, kawawa ka naman kung trans ka lang. But no, you don't owe who you become to other people. Who you become in the future, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself. Always remember that. Hindi ka man graduate on time, it's totally fine. Hindi ka man matanggap dun sa trabahong ginagan mo for the longest time, it's totally fine. It doesn't mean any less to your worth. It doesn't mean any less to who you are as a person. At the end of the day, ikaw lang din ang makakapagdikta kung sino ka as a person, kung ano yung trajectory mo sa buhay at kung saan mo gustong mapunta in the future. And if you allow these judgments, these hurdles define where you want to go, then you will never be a winner. Because a winner knows how to take losses and get up from them. And that's what I did. I took up my losses, I embraced them, and from there moved forward and claimed my victories.
So, we would really like to express our immense gratitude to you. So, thank you for being here with us today, and to our listeners, thanks for listening to Blip, Being Left in a Phase. With your hosts, Andy Babs and Ella Remedios, we really hope that you enjoyed our deep dive into the topic of this episode. As always, you can head over to our official YouTube channel and social media platforms for more news and updates.
And don't forget to join us on our last episode. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to the UST CTHM Student Council official YouTube channel. So thank you guys for listening. And this has been Blip, Being Left in a Phase, signing off.